In the first class session, we explored one way of thinking about the brain's role in mental and emotional challenges. For many years, scientists and the general public believed the adult brain was unchanging and permanent. What does it mean for individual patients and families if they believe the brain can't change? There are real burdens and challenges for anyone who faces serious mental or emotional disorder. When you add to those burdens the notion that your brain is also permanently dysfunctional, it's no surprise that many people feel overwhelmed and even a bit helpless.
Our brain really runs us in a lot of ways, and if something's defective about it and we can't change it, that would really that would make it difficult for someone to feel a lot of hope.
We think that that's a definitive statement about our body or our brain, and we tend to identify with that, and that can create kind of this claustrophobic feeling of, well, I can only wiggle so much, I can only do so much about it because that's what I am.
I think that if somebody did not understand that the brain is capable of changing, it could leave you to being in a very suffocating, constrained feeling, that it's a hopeless feeling.
And the thought is, I'm not okay, and I'm never going to be okay, and no one's going to be able to help me, and I'm not going to be able to help myself. It's a deeply hopeless place.
People who face serious mental and emotional challenge often feel that they are somehow messed up inside. And we take that for granted. Obviously, there must be something wrong inside of that person.
And they feel often tainted or broken or damaged deep down inside, which is often the deepest wound of all, much deeper than the surface symptoms of a mood disorder or anxiety and so on.
The people that come to our programs are smart, they're creative, they're resilient, they're survivors, they're just amazing human beings, and yet they've been told that they're broken, and they buy it. They believe that. And so we have this huge population of really amazing, creative, smart people that have just been written off, and that's a tragedy.
When individuals see their own body as somehow permanently deficient, it can dramatically affect how they come to think about recovery itself.
Because I had the diagnosis of schizophrenia, I was told that I had a mental disorder that people never get well from.
This is not an uncommon view, as you can see in these comments from parents we've interviewed, speaking about their children who face mental or emotional struggles. For some, this kind of feeling about the future sets in after years of grinding struggle. When asked if she thought recovery was possible, one woman said, "No, not really. I mean, I just don't know. I've fought with it so long that I just don't know that that'll ever happen." For others, the same kind of belief in a permanent problem appears linked closely to their view of a permanent brain.
When I was about 16 years old, I remember the first conversation I had with a psychiatrist about my brain and about how my brain influenced my mental illness and its role in my mental illness. And he told me that my brain was like a car engine that didn't have oil in it, and therefore over time it would break down. It wasn't able to do what it wanted to do because it didn't have all the proper components there. I was a bit crushed when I suddenly, at age 16, listening to a medical doctor, I was disposed to believe him that my brain was like a car engine that didn't have oil in it, which brings up this natural question, well, where do I get oil? And, how much does this oil cost? And, where can I get a reliable supply? Because the last thing I want to do is break down. All these fearful thoughts coming up. And, your life transforms like that. You go from having this brain to having this busted up jalopy of a car that's going to break down at any moment. And it was rough. I remember that was a sad day for me, and I really carried that with me.
Are you seeing how all this connects? If my brain has a permanent problem, then maybe this is who I am. If this is who I am, then this is probably going to be my life. If this is going to be my life, then so much for hoping for any deep or really complete recovery.
So I've been doing this for over 10 years. I've worked with hundreds of adolescent girls and young adult women, and those that come to me that have this story in their head or this narrative, the way they see their brains as fixed or unchangeable or just stuck, and that this is the way it will always be, tend to make the least amount of changes. And I'll see a small shift, and typically those shifts will be about getting some more coping skills or enduring things a little better, but typically it's about getting back to the status quo, not really getting to a place of sustained peace or contentment in life.
By the way, it's important to be clear about one question: medication. We don't have a lot to say about psychiatric drugs in this curriculum, in part because we believe that kind of education is a doctor's job, not ours. Every once in a while, pills and medication will come up or be alluded to in a quote, sometimes in good ways, other times raising a question. But let's be very clear. Many people have experienced help with medication, and we respect that for sure. We believe people should have space to make their own decisions about that. So we leave that up to people and their doctors. Let's go back to our main point here, the personal impact of hearing that your brain is permanently deficient.
I remember feeling dismayed, and maybe I'm putting that too mildly. I remember feeling a little bit crushed, that all of a sudden this brain that had made such a good companion to me for 16 years of my tender life, that it was deficient, that it was kind of broken, that there was something that we needed to prop it up with to make it kind of work. And so immediately this new framework, this framing of the symptoms that were coming up in my life, it wasn't a tough go at it. It wasn't just this season in my life of challenge and unrest. It was, this is your brain, kid. This is how things are going to be. And I was upset. I felt deeply saddened by that prospect.
When you are already feeling hopeless and in despair and like you'll never get out of the hell you're in, to have someone tell you that what you have is a condition that you're going to have to live with the rest of your life, it makes you even feel more hopeless, more in despair, and more worthless, and like, why even try? Why even try? This pain is going to last forever.
The personal consequences of this kind of hopelessness can be tragic.
I recently interviewed a young woman who told me that her suicidal thoughts started the same day that her doctor told her her depression would likely be a lifelong condition. People who are already in a really tough position and feeling weighed down, being told by a person they trust, a person in authority, that after all, this condition you're facing is probably lifelong. So we're taking this group of people that is already so vulnerable and we're saddling them with this story that, as far as I can tell, is just not true, not scientific.
This is serious stuff. For anyone facing the pain of severe emotional problems, the message that there is little or no hope for full recovery can simply be devastating. One individual, who is now a board-certified psychiatrist, was told he couldn't recover after his own diagnosis with schizophrenia years earlier. In an interview, he reflected, "This view that if one becomes mentally ill, one will always be sick, not only interferes with emotional recovery, but also prevents one from identifying as a contributing member of society, striving to return to work, or establishing long-term relationships, which are essential aspects of recovery." The bottom line is this: how exactly we think about the brain matters. For those who see their brain as permanently deficient or defective, that can mean some real consequences for their experience of recovery. We finish with a few words from a woman also diagnosed with depression and schizophrenia, who was also given little hope for recovery from those around her, who also went on to recover in a very deep way.